Oh my god. I'm so upset. I'm so upset. So, if you're anything like me, and you've been following medieval fantasy extraction shooters, jeez, that's a mouthful, then you would have known about a game called Dungeonborne. Back when this game first released, there was a lot of controversy around Dungeonborne and Dark and Darker. In fact, anytime that a medieval fantasy extraction shooter comes out, there's controversy around it and Dark and Darker. Now, obviously, when I say a lot, I mean the community of medieval fantasy extraction shooters like Dark and Darker and Dungeonborne. People who are interested in these very niche communities. You know what I mean? Now I like Dark and Darker. You know, I'm not as crazy about it as a lot of the Dark and Darker community, but I enjoy the game. It's a pretty decent game, you know. It's definitely got some learning curves. It's got some areas that it can improve for the more casual player, I guess. And I think Dungeonborne had that. I think Dungeonborne had a healthy balance of hardcore and, you know, casual actiony gameplay. But for whatever reason, Dungeonborne just didn't work. I don't know why, and I don't know what caused them to give up on the game, but they gave up on the game. They really just gave up on the game today about the termination of Dungeonborne. Now, that's a long time coming. It's a long time coming for it to actually be terminated. You know, everybody speculated. Everybody said it's just a matter of time. But, you know, a lot of us were hoping that it would come back in a big way. And now it just seems like it's not. It seems like it's not gonna come back at all. And instead of hopping into the game and seeing if maybe that announcement woke up some players to try out the game a little more, I just decided that I'll play the active game, you know, the one that gets actively updated and changed. Dark and Darker. You know, when Dark and Darker first came out, no, dude, I played the hell out of this game. I was never really good. I've never been good at PvP games. Like, you know, jack of all trades, master of none. That's kind of me. I never really play games to be the absolute best at them. I always just play them for fun. You know, play them to have a good time, to make some memories. That's why I play games. And you know, obviously you can only do so much in Dark and Darker until your mental just breaks. Oh, so yeah, I've just always liked dungeon crawling games. I've always liked fantasy games. You know, my most played game as a kid was Legend of Zelda. You know, I would always play Legend of Zelda. I would always play, I played some of the Final Fantasy games, you know, like those games were my stuff, you know? Like, oh man, I gotta pick locks. All right, well, so I've always been into fantasy games, and it just seemed right to play Dark and Darker because I was also getting into the whole extraction shooters genre. I think the extraction shooters genre is really cool. You know, it has replayability, but it also has something to it has something to work up to. Whether it's like season rewards or just being at the top of the leaderboard or even just beating some of the bosses in the game. Extraction shooters, I don't know who made the rules of extraction shooters, but they're always hardcore. So at least for me, whenever I beat an enemy that I was never able to beat before in an extraction shooter, it feels really good. PvPvE games always kind of had that format, and that's why I play a lot of them, but I'm not really crazy about the PvP aspect of them. Mostly because there's always people who end up finding a way to exploit or just change the game fundamentally by, well, yeah, exploiting or doing some crazy stuff that is never originally planned to be part of the combat system, you know? But there's also, I can't just not acknowledge the people that are actually good at the game. So, but that's another thing. It's another thing. The sweats also ruin the game because I'm over here just trying to survive and get through the dungeon, and then there's like some random guy who has 1,000,000 hours in the game and he has insane gear, and all he does is go into these lobbies with noobs to kill noobs. I'm not gonna tell people how to play their game. I'm just saying that kind of ruins the experience for new players. Kind of ruins the experience for players who just kind of want to do cool stuff in the game. I know when I first started, learning how to just like maneuver around the game and how to survive was always a little harder whenever I would run into a player who had better gear or was just better than me, because all they do is PvP. Definitely made the game a lot harder to get into that way. And Dungeonborne just really made it feel like I had a chance. There were abilities in Dungeonborne, the gear was pretty sick, the classes were pretty sick. I mean, there was literally a class where all you used was swords, and you can dual wield or have a big sword, and your abilities would be you being able to launch swords at people. There was a parry mechanic. I don't even know if you can parry in Dark and Darker, but I've never experienced it, so yeah, you could parry in Dungeonborne. It was a game that had potential in its core mechanics. I guess they just never fixed things, or they fixed things wrong, because I do remember seeing a couple people saying all the changes that they made just ruined their gameplay. Personally, I never experienced it. I never experienced a dramatic change to the characters that I had, to the point where I would be like, oh, this game fucking sucks. But, apparently that was a thing. Apparently that was something that a lot of people were kind of upset about, and maybe that's why they gave up on the game. But regardless, Dungeonborne was a game that I really felt could have made an impact in the extraction shooter genre, especially an impact on the Dark and Darker community, and opened up the genre to more people, because I know a lot of people tried Dungeonborne and didn't try Dark and Dark, and I know a bunch of people tried Dark and Darker and didn't like it, but they liked the idea of a medieval fantasy extraction. Jesus, I'm never gonna get used to saying all that. But yeah, let me know if you played Dark and Darker, let me know if you played Dungeonborne, and let me know which one you thought was better. I know there's people who don't like either, and hopefully one day we'll actually get one that everyone will enjoy and no one wants to change. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the dungeon.